Wow, what did you think of that session about agency? For me, it's essential to feel in control of, my own life and my own choices.
Yeah, definitely agree, De Graaf.
Yeah.
I was really interested in the session about the first ever United States National Adolescent Health Action Plan. It could really be a promising practice for other countries to consider and to look at as we embark on this journey to promote adolescent health, well-being, and development.
100%.
So now to our next core sessions. If you've ever come across bullying, and sadly, most of us have, you'll know what a devastating effect it can have on your and our collective lives. This core session might be for you. It's called We Deserve Better, from combating violence to fostering safe spaces. Alternatively, you might want to get involved with this one, also absolutely vital. It's called Adding It Up, Evidence to Impact, making the case for adolescent sexual and reproductive health and rights. As we all know, data is power, and this session highlights how data is being used by young people to improve adolescent health services across 130 countries. I'll be joining that one.
And of course, we are spoiled for choice today. And as we're talking about data, you might know about the wonderful Apurva Panidapu, aka the human calculator. Now, she is a proper genius, but not just with figures. She's a massive thought leader on topics like work and how employers need to understand the values of the young workforce. Plus, we've got interesting partner content. The day is nearly done, folks. We'll see you after the next sessions.
Unite! Unite! Rise! Rise! Lead! Lead!
Hi, I'm Apurva Panidapu, and I'm so excited to be joining you at the first ever Global Forum for Adolescence. It's so inspiring that over 1 million young people have engaged in the 1.8 billion Young People for Change campaign, including through the What Young People Want survey. These voices are the springboard for all the amazing conversations, dialogues, and creative and innovative activities that we're enjoying across these 2 packed days. It doesn't surprise me at all that the results of the historic What Young People Want survey show that one of the leading priorities for young people right now is finding work that they feel inspired by. We are constantly talking about diversity in the workplace, and often we think that's about race, gender, ethnicity, and it is, but it's also about age. Not only are we the 1.8 billion strong young generation, the biggest in history, we are also the first generation to be digital natives. We are a generation which wants to feel passionate about the work which we do. But workplace leaders don't currently understand how to attract young talent and, more importantly, retain them. I believe that leaders and corporations need to reimagine workplaces so that they appeal to our generational values in this digital age. Values like sustainability, social responsibility, and diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's time for leaders to listen to us, to understand and adapt the workplace in order to engage us, the next generation of thinkers, the I.8 generation. And they must adapt quickly to be ahead of the game and to be at the forefront of the future of work, innovation, and creativity. We know the incredible potential of growing our work online and how young people can engage with virtual platforms to create, grow, and develop businesses and their own personal passions. Moving forward, we need to address gender bias in technology and education and enable all students to engage in this digital age. It's time to welcome learning transferable real world skills like the ability to pivot in order to give meaning to learning and to boost motivation. Let's make sure we don't hold back the talent of our generation while waiting to arrive at the problems of tomorrow. Instead, let's enable all young people to be actively learning and working on the problems of today so that we can fix them now. Here's to Gen Z.
Hello, everyone. I'm Daniel, and I'm here to share with you new evidence that shows exactly why we need more attention and more investment in adolescent well being. Now, we all know that campaigning needs strong facts to back up our voices. So, now, for the first time, the BMJ, a leading academic journal, has released the first of a 2-part collection on adolescent well being. The best bit is that young people's views are at the heart of the series, so let's say hello to my fellow incredible young researchers who took part in this important work.
Hello, everyone.
Now, we asked for your questions on this series and put them to our young research team.
It is understood that every government has to balance what they spend their money on. However, we do know that for every $1 spent on adolescent well-being, there's a return of $5 to $12 because if young people are healthy, educated, and have access to opportunities, they are much more likely to contribute positively to society. In this vein, governments can not only save money, but can also yield higher returns on their investment by making the decision to invest in young people today. That being said, it is necessary to note that the most important reason for investing in adolescent well-being is that this is their basic human rights. And as such, it is the duty of governments to plan for, support, and address adolescent well-being.
There are 5 domains of well-being that mattered to young people. Number 1, good health and nutrition. Between 2003 and 2015, adolescents accounted for 11% of the global burden of disease, but they actually only received 1.6% in terms of development assistance. We are calling for more financial investments for young people. Number 2, connectedness and community. Having a sense of belonging, good social, mental, and emotional support was linked to better health outcomes. We're calling to strengthen community and connectedness for youth worldwide. Number 3, safety and support. In 2018, 1 in every 3 girls between the ages of 15 and 19 suffered from a form of physical, sexual, or emotional abuse from an intimate partner. Unfortunately, we know that the pandemic made this much worse. We're calling for a safe environment, free from harm and violence, so we can live a life free from fear. Number 4, education and employment. Globally, 1 in 5 young people between the ages of 15 and 24 is not in employment, education, or training. Unfortunately, this is twice as likely to affect young women than young men. We're calling for all young people around the world to have access to school or training, especially girls and women, so that we can be financially independent, have control over our futures, and contribute to our communities. And finally, number 5, agency and resilience. We know our needs and rights, and we know how to advocate for them. We also know that what gets measured gets counted. So we are calling for stronger systems for accountability to measure progress, and platforms for our voices to be heard.
The Adolescent Wellbeing BMJ collection was co-written by young people, which is pretty key given that the collection built on technical papers to promote adolescent well-being. It was particularly important to have voices from the Global South because all too often research is produced in the absence of these voices. Beyond being involved in the writing itself, young people were consulted to determine the priority themes or domains of a BMJ collection. All in all, young researchers had the opportunity to share their expertise about issues that matter to them.
Climate change is already affecting our lives, putting at risk our physical and mental health and well-being, and exactly how it does so is covered throughout the series. We also focus on how health communities are in a unique position to tackle climate change, such as through evidence generation, net zero healthcare efforts, but also crucially by collaborating with adolescents on advocacy on how climate change is impacting their well-being.
Thank you, fellow researchers. The series has been 18 months in the making, and we are so delighted to be launching it now, especially because we know there's a force for change right here with us. So, whether you're speaking with your head teacher, member of parliament, or president, we hope you can use this evidence to campaign for adolescent well being. We can't wait to hear how this is being used, so let us know. There's so much more information on the campaign platform at 1.8.org. Thank you.
Unite! Unite! Rise! Rise! Lead! Lead! Young people, this is our time.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our event on violence against adolescents. My name is Sirich from disproportionately in Cameroon, and I'll be your moderator for this session. Today, we have an incredible number of speakers who will be sharing their amazing experiences, insights, recommendations on how we can prevent violence against adolescents. We will be hearing from experts around the world who will be sharing their country-specific examples of how they are tackling this issue. We hope that by the end of this session, you will have gained valuable experiences and insights into how we can work together to prevent violence against adolescents. But first, we will start with the introduction of our incredible speakers. We have on the board Daniel Engel, who is the team lead, adolescents and youth at UNFPA. Daniel Engel is a technical expert with over 20 years of experience in the field of population development, gender, and public health, with a background in sociology, educational science, and her work has focused on strategy planning, program development, implementation, monitoring, evaluation, and policy advocacy. Throughout her career, Danielle has had the privilege of working with diverse teams and contributing to program guidance aimed at supporting adolescent health and development, youth empowerment, gender equity, and human rights. Second on the board, we have Desmond G, who is the founder of Deserve in Cameroon. Desmond G has more than 18 years of community engagement to promote sexual and reproductive health services and the fight against HIV among adolescents, youth, and women in Cameroon and more widely. He researches health services issues. He holds an MSc in health economics from the Norwich in economics from the University of Chang, Cameroon. As Queen's Young Leader, he took the Leading Change course from the Institute of Continuing Education, University of Cambridge. He's the founder of Deserve equally and spearheaded the 1.8 billion move in Cameroon. We equally have Yasmin Sami, who is the gender team lead at OSRM at Pathfinder International. Yasmin Sami holds the position of team lead for gender and inclusion within the OSRA program, the program founded by USAID and led by Pathfinder. Spans 5 years and aims to enhance family health outcomes by strengthening national family planning and reproductive health efforts. We equally have Shamima Parveen, who is gender management at Pathfinder International, Bangladesh. As a public health specialist, she's responsible for initiating, implementing, supervising, and evaluating various programs, sub-grantee management, national standards, and guideline development, working jointly with USAID, UNFPA, WHO, and other stakeholders and partner organizations. She is also recognized as a capacity development specialist in the field of gender, non-communicable diseases, family planning, RSDI, etc., and has 23 years of experience in the reproductive health space. After this amazing session, we will start with Danielle Engel, who will be telling us about setting the scene, present the outcomes of the technical paper, and violence against adolescents. Over to you, Danielle. You have 6 minutes.
Yeah, thank you very much, and it's a pleasure to be here representing UNFPA. Welcome everyone to the Global Forum of Adolescence. It's really exciting that we are finally there. So it's my task today to give you an overview of what we are dealing with when we are talking about violence against adolescents. In this presentation, I will explore the lifelong impact which violence has on adolescents and the urgent need for us to take preventive action. Slide. So my presentation will be structured in four main areas. First of all, we look at the data of what we know about adolescents in violence against adolescents. Then I would like to deep dive a little bit on adolescent girls, which are at a double disadvantage when it comes to violence of being young and female. Then I'd like to look at some risk factors and also some opportunities which we have working with this cohort, and then conclude. Next slide. Next slide. Adolescence violence in childhood and adolescence. Violence is a pervasive issue that affects individuals at all stages of life. But children face exposure to violence at alarmingly young ages. UNICEF estimates that around 300 million children aged 2 to 4 experience psychological aggression and physical punishment by their caregivers at home. 1 billion children face multiple forms of violence annually globally. One third of school children experience bullying and physical fighting. And over 730 million children of school-going ages live in countries where corporal punishment is not yet ruled out. As children transition to adolescence, their social network expands, becomes more complex, and that also puts them at a higher risk for violence. The nature of violence they're exposed to also changes as they grow older. The consequences of violence in adolescence is as severe, with deaths due to violence being more than double in adolescence than in the first decade of life. Next slide. Can we move to the next slide? There we go. So what are the consequences? The consequences of violence in adolescence are far-reaching. Violence negatively impacts adolescent brain development, health, and social growth. It increases the likelihood of poor educational outcomes, early unwanted pregnancy, STIs, mental health disorder. It increases social and emotional difficulties for adolescents. It increases their risk-taking behavior and substance misuse and obesity. At the same time, violence or the threat of violence reduces adolescents' access to support services, it decreases their social participation, their access to education and economic opportunities, which is compromising their present and future choices. Next slide. Looking to adolescent girls now more particularly, adolescent girls experience various forms of violence, including violent discipline, dating relationship violence, and intimate partner violence. In 36 out of 54 countries, at least 20% of adolescent girls aged 15 to 19 have experienced physical or sexual violence since the age of 15. Sexual initiation in low and middle income countries is often marked by violence and coercion. Child marriage is affecting 12 million girls annually, and this is a risk factor for physical and sexual violence by intimate partners. We're also increasingly concerned about technology on online spaces, which have seen an increase of technology facilitated gender-based violence, affecting over half of girls and women with internet access. And this is based on a study which was made in 31 countries. Let me also say, as adolescent girls transition into adulthood, the prevalence of violence increases, with an estimate of 736 million women which are experiencing intimate partner violence, non-partner sexual violence, or both. Next slide. Next slide. The underlying causes and risk factors which contribute to violence against adolescents are multifaceted. Factors include childhood exposure to violence, low education and gender inequitable social norms. Gender disparities also play a role. Gender-based discrimination and stereotypes are significant. And then, as I said, gender plays a specific role in also the type of violence which adolescents are exposed to. Boys, for instance, face higher risk of homicide, while girls are particularly vulnerable to sexual violence and intimate partner violence. Adolescents also have distinct care-seeking behavior. Stigma and social norms often discourage them to seek professional help. And on the other side, healthcare providers may not identify intimate partner violence as among adolescents. Adolescents also internalize more easily harmful gender norms and attitudes due to their experiences which we live in their country, in their families and their communities. All this has long-term impacts for adolescent health and well-being. Adolescent experiences of gender-based violence can shape their identities and also their behaviors and affect their prospects for healthy relationships throughout their lives. Next slide. Despite this time of increased vulnerability, adolescence and early adulthood offers us a time offers us a critical time for opportunities of a window for intervention. It's a time where the foundations for healthy behaviors and relationships are laid. The early adolescent years are particularly sensitive for social and emotional learning. A positive sense of self paired with emotional and physical safety is key to healthy development in that stage. Late adolescence sees an improvement in self-regulating skills, which are critical for mental and physical health and well-being. As such, as I said, adolescents offer us an important age group to preemptively tackle key drivers for violence in their present and future. Next slide. And that leads me already to the conclusion, which just saying that physical and sexual violence poses a significant long-term threat to adolescent health and well-being. We do have opportunity for preventive action. Adolescence offers, as I said before, a window of opportunities for prevention efforts. There's a need to focus on the early adolescence. Emphasizing early adolescence is essential to break the intergenerational cycles of violence and provide lifelong health. What we need is an intersectoral approach. A violence prevention intervention must consider the intersecting drivers of violence. We need to employ a gender-sensitive and a life course approach in this effort. We need to collaborate between sectors. For instance, the violence against children and violence against women sectors are critical, and these two sectors need to work together so that we can come to comprehensive prevention and response policies. And finally, global effort should prioritize and center the needs of adolescents to create a safer and a healthier world for the next generation. And I think I'll leave it there and hand it over back to you.
All right. Thank you so much, Danielle, for that amazing and insightful explanation and presentation. Right now, we will be moving on to Desmond G, who is the manager at Deserve and 1.8 billion campaign focal point, and he will be presenting about violence in schools, and he will provide an example from his work about violence in schools. Without further ado, thank you so much, and up to you, Mr. Desmond, to present.
Thank you very much, Ulrich, and thanks to Daniel Engel for setting the scene. I have decided to title this presentation as Everyone Seems to Be Involved in School Violence, Causes and Solutions, which is actually placing emphasis on the multi-stakeholder approach, intersectoral approach, which Daniel Engel has talked about lately. And I have also started my presentation with this two news briefs which happened or which were released the 13th of January or following an incident of the 13th of January 2020 in which a 15-year-old student stabbed his math teacher at government bilingual high school in Colbison in Yaoundé, Cameroon, and that's just one of the episodes of school violence reported and unreported in Cameroon schools and in other places in the world. The government and the school stakeholders are actually worried and they are asking why and how can this be put to a halt. Next slide, please. So there are records of violence pitting students against teachers and school administrators, and vice versa, students against students as well. Bullying, gender-based violence, sexual misconduct, and torture are just a few examples of these anti-school activities. Among the top antisocial outcomes of these activities is mental health disorders, depression, anger, and inferiority complex. The Cameroon Ministry of Secondary Education held a conference in December 2022 to find solutions to this crisis and to discuss the way out. Next slide, please. So we understand that school is a community on its own, and that's the beginning of understanding school violence. That in an average of 5,475 hours that students spend being awake, they actually spend 14 to 19% of that time in schools. So school has a mixture of good, bad, and ugly outcomes. And so we've got to be aware of that. So curbing school violence is a fundamental part of every school sound establishment in order to promote the preserve the intended good of school. Next slide, please. So why are there violent behaviors among students and staff in schools? I have postulated four points. The first is that school nurtures its own values, positive and negative, among school as a community. And in every community, we have the good, the bad, and the ugly. The second is that there are intrinsic factors among students and staff, like the person's age, sex, temperament, state of mental and physical health, and personality that interact to determine their behavior in school. The third is the upsurge of digital technology facilitated by the internet. The fourth, and very significant, is that most students, particularly in secondary schools, are at that critical stage of the natural growth and development called adolescence. And many stakeholders have not fully understand adolescence and how to deal with it. Next slide. So what can we do about this school violence? I built on research and evidence to propose momentary and sustainable measures to curb school violence with case study in Cameroon schools. Next slide, please. So I'm just going to present to you two examples of momentary measures. Momentary measures target each of the causes of violence, each of the four causes mentioned. If we take an example of school nurturing negative outcomes of values, that would be curbed through the school discipline, keeping close watch on student and staff activities, rules and regulations being set on a meaningful engagement basis, including student and staff, so that they can understand a good behavior and perhaps consequences for bad behavior. And then taking a course like the critical stage of adolescence, which causes or which might be a trigger to psychosocial and emotional spurts and imbalance, growth in economic, nutritional, social, and safety needs. I propose that students and teachers be trained on adolescent health and well-being, and life skills training and seminars for students and staff are equally important. Next slide, please. Now, for the sustainable measures, I talk about two proposals. The first is to develop and implement a policy on the whole school approach. This kind of approach will deliver mental health support in schools, life skills education and support programs, and the much needed sexual and reproductive health services in schools. And then on a holistic implementation of health and well-being curricula, that is one of the sustainable measures. there are 10 subject areas which we brought out in a research. I'll just mention one of them, which is comprehensive sexuality education, which offers a holistic uh, approach to the adolescent's well-being. It's age appropriate. And other content like physical education and nutrition education are equally important subject areas that could be included in the curriculum. And since everyone is involved, next slide, please. Since everyone is involved in the process of curbing school violence, I have made this table as an example of multi-sectoral interventions to promote the 5 domains of adolescent well-being. If you take an example of good health and nutrition, that will involve in Cameroon the ministries of health, agriculture, and rural development and commerce. So at the end, we realized that every stakeholder is involved in perhaps a cause or being a trigger to school violence and the solution. And so a multi-sectoral, a multi-stakeholder approach is of the essence here. That is one of the things which I think we should drive home from this particular session. Next slide, please. So the last thing I would like to say is thank you very much, and I'm very open to further questions. Thank you, Ulrich, and over.
Oh, thank you so much, Desmond, for that amazing presentation. Um, just in case, we have a little instruction to give our listeners out there. There is at the top, the top right of the screen, the second icon at the top right of the screen is the portal for you to ask questions. So, in case anyone has any doubts on what exactly any of the speakers are talking about, you can go to the second icon downwards at the top right, and click in order to be able to access the panel where you can ask questions. So we move on now to the third speaker. We're talking here about Shamima Paveen, Pathfinder Bangladesh, and a service provider. She will be talking about country example from Bangladesh, the role of integrating GIFPS and its utility in combating GBV, that is gender-based violence at community level, experience providing services to victims of GBV. So over to you, Parveen.
I am Dr. Shamima Parveen, Gender Manager at Pathfinder International Bangladesh. Today, I will discuss integrating gender into family planning, including addressing gender-based violence in reproductive health services to improve family planning access in Bangladesh. Here, we can see that the inequality persists.
We can't hear you clearly, Parveen.
Dependence on family planning for basic choices limits autonomy, impacting health service use and family planning. Many women face gender-based violence during their reproductive years. Spousal power dynamics drive gender-based violence. Unmarried females hold progressive views, while married women often uphold traditional roles. Unmarried males prioritize sons' education and resist girls' outdoor activities and women working outside. We have taken a strategic approach and incorporate gender awareness into all our efforts through a multi-pronged strategy that considers gender, including improving staff training and facility readiness, while ensuring privacy and confidentiality. At the national level, we are empowering groups to advocate for change. Locally, we are increasing community involvement. While service providers may struggle to connect gender issue with services, and community norms can hinder recognizing related concerns, we consistently perform gender analysis, create strategic plans, devise activities, and implement them, followed by ongoing monitoring and evaluation. This forms a continuous and iterative at the facility level. To incorporate gender into family planning, we have formulated a facility readiness checklist that aligns with WHO standards. Out of 15,692 service providers trained, 4,833 were male and 11,840 were female, and males dominate managerial positions. We have created a checklist for service providers to improve monitoring. Unfortunately, SRH-related GVB can often overlooked because it was seen as common. To address this, we started on-the-job training. In conclusion, we saw that there is a strong connection between gender-based violence and SRH in family planning services. Gender-based violence can hinder women's SRH access, while comprehensive SRH services can empower women to prevent and address GVB. Thank you all for your patience hearing.
মিসেস শাম্পা, তার বয়স 18 বছর, তার বিয়ের বয়স 11 বছর, তার 8 বছরের একটি মেয়ে ও 5 বছরের একটি ছেলে আছে। তার হাজবেন্ড বহিরাগত, বর্তমানে তিনি আবার 3 মাসের গর্ভবতী। আমি রত্না আহমেদ, পরিবার কল্যাণ পরিদর্শিকা, নাসিরাবাদ স্বাস্থ্য ও পরিবার কল্যাণ কেন্দ্র, ভাঙায় কাজ করি। প্রজনন স্বাস্থ্য সেবা দেওয়া আমার দায়িত্ব ও কর্তব্য। মিসেস শান্তা আমার কাছে প্রথম আসে তিনি যখন 3 মাসের গর্ভবতী, প্রচণ্ড তলপেটে ব্যথা ও প্রস্রাবে জ্বালা পোড়া নিয়ে। আমি তাকে পরীক্ষা করি, কয়েকটা টেস্ট করার মাধ্যমে জানতে পারি তার ইউরিন ইনফেকশন। যাই হোক আমি তাকে ওষুধ দিই, তিনি ভালো হয়ে বাসে চলে যান। 8 মাসের সময় তিনি আবার আমার কাছে আসেন হালকা ব্লিডিং ও তলপেটে ব্যথা নিয়ে। তিনি একা আসার কারণে আমি তাকে বলি তার মাকে একটু সাথে করে নিয়ে আসতে। আল্ট্রাসোনোগ্রাম করে নিয়ে আসতে বললাম একটা, তার মা খুব রেগে গেল, বললো আল্ট্রাসোনোগ্রাম করা যাবে না, করলে নাকি বাচ্চা নর্মাল হয় না। আমি তাকে অনেক বোঝালাম, অনেক বোঝানোর পরে তিনি একটা আলট্রা করে নিয়ে আসলো। আলট্রা করে নিয়ে আসার পরে আমি তাতে দেখলাম গর্ভবোধ জ্বরের ঠিক মুখে ঠিক সাইডে অবস্থান করতেছে, তার কারণে হয়তো বা হালকা ব্লিডিং হতেছে। আমি তাদের বোঝাই দিলাম, তাদেরকে বললাম আপনি বাড়িতে গিয়ে বিশ্রাম নেবেন, পর্যাপ্ত বিশ্রাম নেবেন এবং সাবধানে থাকবেন। তার মা আমার কথা শুনে আবার রেগে গেলেন, বললেন যে বিশ্রাম যদি বেশি নেয় তাহলে নাকি বাচ্চা বড় হয়ে যাবে, বাচ্চা নর্মাল হবে না কিছু। আমি তাকে অনেকভাবে বোঝানোর চেষ্টা করলাম, তিনি বুঝতে চাইলেন না। আমি বললাম তাকে চেক আপের জন্য প্রতি মাসে আমার কাছে নিয়ে আসতে, আর এখন তো 8 মাস, প্রতি 15 দিন অন্তর নিয়ে আসতে। উনি তাতেও রাজি হলেন না, খুব রাগারাগি করে এখান থেকে চলে গেলেন। আমি যেহেতু জেন্ডার ভিত্তিক সহিষ্ণুতার উপরে একটি ট্রেনিং করেছি, তার জন্য বুঝতে পারলাম এটা জেন্ডার ভিত্তিক সহিষ্ণুতার মধ্যে পড়ে। তাই আমি তাকে আবার ফোন করলাম, সাথে ফোন করে বললাম তার বাবার সাথে যেন আমাকে কথা বলে। সে তার বাবার সাথে আমাকে কথা বলা দিল। তার বাবাকে অনেকভাবে বোঝালাম, হাসপাতালের ডেলিভারির সুবিধা এবং অসুবিধা সম্বন্ধে বললাম, বাড়িতে অসুবিধাগুলোও বললাম এবং বললাম তার মেয়ের যে পরিস্থিতি, গর্ভফুল ঠিক জ্বরের মুখের সাইডে যে কোনো সময় ব্লিডিং হতে পারে, হাসপাতালে ডেলিভারি করা তার জন্য খুব জরুরি। তাকে বোঝানোর পরে সে বলল যে ঠিক আছে, সে তার ওয়াইফকে বোঝায় বলবে। তো সে চলে গেল।
Very young adolescence is a time when young people start experiencing unequal gender norms that negatively affect their health and well-being. While interventions with very young adolescents have great potential to improve young people's lives, there has been less investment in this age group compared to older adolescents and insufficient focus on boys. Further, while interventions such as the Setara Comprehensive Sexuality Education Program address individual level factors among very young adolescents, real change cannot happen without key adults, communities, and institutions that significantly influence their health and well-being. Research from the Global Early Adolescent Study conducted in Denpasar, Semarang, and Lampung found that just 55% of very young adolescents feel comfortable talking to their parents or main caregivers. Many very young adolescents feel threatened in schools both by peers and adults and do not feel comfortable asking for help. As many as 57.5% of adolescents also admitted that they had received verbal abuse and ridicule from adults. Many adolescents have unequal beliefs about gender, Half of boys and 1/3 of girls have unequal beliefs in the traits boys and girls should have. 1/3 of all adolescents believe in stereotypical roles for girls and boys in their household and communities. Both boys and girls think about or engage in self-harm, but the proportions of boys that think about hurting themselves is double that of girls. From 2021 to 2022, Breakthrough Action, Johns Hopkins University, and PKBI Bali used human-centered design to develop a package of interventions that will create a more gender-equitable environment for very young adolescents, improve their mental health, and reduce bullying in schools. Human-centered design is a creative approach to problem solving that places users at the center of the design process. It is a methodology used to improve systems, services, and products in a way that truly benefits the people, using them by taking a human perspective and involving users at every step of the problem-solving process. More than 1,000 people were involved in co-designing, prototyping, and testing the solutions in Denpasar, Bali, and Semarang, Central Java, including very young adolescents, their parents, their teachers, and school administrators, community leaders, and representatives of the Indonesian government. The final package of interventions aims to create an environment where very young adolescents of all genders feel safe and heard. Parents and caregivers have strong relationships with their children and hold equal aspirations for them regardless of their gender. Teachers and school staff or administrators respond to bullying in a gender-equitable way and create an environment where all students, regardless of gender, feel comfortable. Communities exhibit gender-equitable social values. Institutions create or invest in gender-equitable policies, processes, and programs to better support very young adolescents of all genders.
Om Swastiastu. Perkenalkan, nama saya Imade Ambara Putra Nirwana Syatmaja dari SMP Negeri 4 Denpasar dan saya berumur 14 tahun.
Perkenalkan, nama saya Farani Syasin dari Subianto. Saya adalah alumni dari SMP Wisata Sanur.
Menurut saya, kekerasan atau pembulian berbasis gender yang mempengaruhi remaja di Indonesia itu sangat berpengaruh sih. Apalagi dari kekerasan-kekerasan atau pembulian yang sudah terjadi itu sangat marak terjadi di kalangan remaja. Dan hal itu dapat mempengaruhi dari mental mereka dan juga keseharian mereka nanti di pergaulan mereka. Dan dari Bara sendiri masih sering banget melihat kekerasan ataupun pembulian yang terjadi di sekolah Bara yang itu masih berbasis gender. Pembulian ke temannya Bara yang mereka tuh bersikap seperti lembut dan gemulai, itu mereka ejek seperti cewek dan lain sebagainya.
Menurut saya, kasus perundungan dan juga kekerasan pada remaja sangat-sangat berdampak pada perkembangan anak-anak serta remaja di Indonesia. Karena dengan adanya perundungan serta kekerasan pada remaja, mental health pada remaja juga dapat menurun atau down, bahkan trauma. Contohnya, laki-laki yang bersikap seolah seperti perempuan, bahkan ada yang mengejek kalau dikata-katain seperti mereka tuh kayak cewek, harusnya kamu kayak gini loh. Gitu.
Bara sempat ikut diskusi juga di gedung Kisara, itu bersama orang tua Bara, dan di sana kalau nggak salah itu lagi diskusi tentang pameran. Dan di sana sih pengalaman Bara itu setelah ikutin diskusi itu sih sangat puas ya, karena di diskusi itu juga Bara sangat bebas untuk berekspresi dan juga di sana Bara bebas untuk menyampaikan pendapatnya Bara. Bara ada ikut yang namanya foto story. Nah, di foto story itu Bara sama guru-guru di sekolah Bara. Nah, di foto-foto itu kita membuat skenario sedemikian mungkin yang menyerupai tentang pembulian. Nah, dari sana dari foto-foto yang sudah kami rangkum bertiga itu akan dipamerkan di pameran manusia namanya.
Sebelumnya aku juga mengikuti kegiatan Self School Toalth, di mana saya sebagai remaja mendapatkan kesempatan untuk mengungkapkan saran dan juga pendapat untuk menyelesaikan permasalahan-permasalahan yang ada di sekolah saya, serta untuk memberikan saran program terkait sekolah yang bebas dari kekerasan berbasis gender, bebas dari bullying, dan juga sekolah yang ramah anak. Selain itu, aku juga mengikuti kegiatan pameran di DNA, yang dimana di sana menampilkan banyak sekali karya-karya yang sangat-sangat luar biasa. Contohnya adalah patung yang diwarnai sesuai dengan warna yang dirasakan hari ini.
Sangat berpengaruh sih, karena Bara waktu itu kan tuh ada pelatihan safe school. Jadi pelatihan itu diikutin sama bapak ibu guru di sekolahnya Bara. Jadi sebelum kegiatan pelatihan itu di sekolah Bara tuh ada tuh namanya media penyampaian pesan mengenai perundungan ataupun kekerasan yang terjadi di kelas-kelas mereka. Nah, setelah ada pelatihan itu Jadi guru-guru Bara ini bisa nge-share nih ke melalui default apa aja sih keluhan yang terdapat di kelas-kelas mengenai perundungan ataupun kekerasan. Setelah ada pengaduan itu, guru-guru di sekolahnya Bara jadi bisa ambil tindakan nih untuk mengatasi terjadinya kekerasan ataupun pembudayaan berbasis gender, dan dapat dibuktikan juga kekerasan dan perundungan di sekolahnya Bara sudah mulai mengurang sampai sekarang.
Tentu saja sangat bermanfaat bagi sekolah dan juga saya. Dalam kegiatan di sekolah, sekolah jadi bisa menganalisis ada atau tidak adanya kasus bullying yang ada di sekolah saya. Bagi saya, sexual toalth merupakan wadah untuk saya menyampaikan pendapat dan juga saran saya.
Okay, thank you so much for that amazing session. We head straight to now our next speaker, who is Jasmine Sami, Gender and Inclusion Team Lead, Pathfinder Egypt OSRA program. And she'll be talking to us about country example from Egypt, cyberbullying between the youth in Egypt, and examples on how to prevent cyberbullying and referral systems. Over to you, Jasmine.
Thank you. Thank you so much for all the speakers for these great videos. I want to say that this could be a presentation, but honestly, it's more of a call for action for everyone listening to us today, all of you, youth, parents, guardians, everyone, that we need to come together to really end this awful cyberbullying trend that has been going on all over the world. I'm speaking from experience as a gender and child protection expert over 20 years, but also as a parent of a teenager and a preteen. And I do see what's been going around. Also, this is a call for all the activities that we do, that we include some sort of ending cyberbullying in our activities. So to the next slide, just so we're all on the same page, cyberbullying is using digital communication tools to intimidate, harass, or humiliate others. It involves repeated and deliberate online behavior that causes harm, distress, or fear to the victim. And we can see that this has been increasing all over the world, and especially for those, as we know, with women and girls in a lot of countries. While I'm speaking today and now, if you have your chat on, if you or someone you know has experienced bullying, just write yes in the chat. I understand that so many out there have experienced it or have seen it and are unaware of what to do. So the next slide, please. Cyberbullying in Egypt, it has been notably increasing, especially with all the apps, with all these internet being faster and quicker, and everybody's on their phone. It has really been increasing, sometimes reaching to criminal procedures. A lot of times, also the adolescents and youth are the most affected people, as we know, in the Egyptian society and in the communities. And it's not just in certain places or governorates in Egypt, it's all over the country, as we can see. Also, within schools, we've seen an uptake. Unfortunately, the schools, even if they do have cases, they're not really sharing them. We're trying to do that. And we do want to kind of ask, I don't want to say have a law, but ask schools to compile the number of cyberbullying cases and the cases that they have, so we can learn from them and see what we can do, and to share with parents at conferences or at seminars, so the parents and guardians and the youth themselves know what to expect and what to do about it. And that is known that most common medium for cyber violence in Egypt has been through the social media platform. That is something I am sure a lot of people have seen before, and that is something that has been used a lot over the social media, and especially with women and girls. Next slide. What happened was, in a few years back in 2018, there was the anti-cyber law, anti-cyber and information technology crimes law, which is an excellent law, and it's being used. But two things. First of all, several articles of the cybercrime law protect the user's personal information and accounts, so they're not allowed to be used. And it also criminalizes hacking private accounts or creating fake accounts, which we've seen also increasing in the years in the years that we've had all these cyberbullying cases come to us. Now, again, the law is great. Everybody can have a law. It's actually, how do we use the law? And do people know, an awareness, do they know that there is this law? And this is where all the activities that we do with the communities and on the ground and with our project, the OSRA project, come in place so we can actually end cyberbullying. So with the next slide, how does cyberbullying impact our youth and adolescents? As you can see, it impacted in all the ways. I don't want to go through every single one, but physically, mentally, academically. We've had suicide cases a lot in Egypt. We've had running away from homes, dropping out of schools. So cyberbullying has a huge impact on our adolescents and on our youth. Next slide, please. So back to the OSRA program and how we try to have some intervention. So again, we included a lot of the discussions in our sessions and training sessions. It doesn't have to be specifically for cyberbullying, but if we're speaking with parents or doctors or nurses, we included some sort of discussion about what is cyberbullying, because some people are not aware of it. And we also included, and we collaborated with other entities such as the National Council for Women, Ministry of Health and Population, in including these messages, because it is very important. They already do that. But as a project, and as we work within over 625 communities within the next 4.5 years, it's very important that we emphasize the importance of ending cyberbullying and what to do and how they can actually detect that their child or youth in the household is being cyberbullied. We also work a lot with adolescents and youth, and that's again with the communities and with all the everyone around us. And we also support women and girls in the referral system and in supporting them to end cyberbullying and to go to their parents and to talk to them if anything happens. With the last slide to conclude, we just want to say that we're all in this together. As a conclusion, please go to the next slide. Yeah, thank you. So it's a collective responsibility for governments, for international and national organizations, the private sectors, families, caregivers. It's all of us to eliminate these risks and to increase children and youth's access to a safe and quality online content. Again, thank you so much. Please, we're all together on this, and let's end cyberbullying together. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Yasmin, for that very empathetic session. Now we are moving on to a question and answer session that is going to go very quickly because we're running out of time already. And the very first question that we're having on our list here is how do we build secure spaces in low and middle income countries, knowing the data, but having a population that is almost uneducated on awareness for sexual protection and security? Please. That's the first question.
I think the question goes perhaps to Danielle Engel.
Yes, question goes to Danielle.
Yes. Well, I would say one thing, and that is that we have to make sure that young people know their rights and are educated about their rights to live in a protective environment, be that in their family, in their community, or in their schools. For that reason, we need to really invest in comprehensive sexuality education in and out of school, and UNFPA is doing that, supporting countries to expand access to comprehensive sexuality education, which has been shown as being an important ingredient to prevention of violence. Not the only one, but definitely one.
Okay, thank you so much for that amazing answer, Danielle. We have a second question here for which goes to Desmond, and the question goes to us. One key area of violence in schools that must be eliminated is violence by staff against students. Not only is it wrong, it sends a message to learners that violence, and specifically beating a weaker person, is okay. It is not. Are there any countries that will still allow teachers to beat learners in school, and what organizations are campaigning to stop this practice? Question goes to Desmond, please.
Thank you, Ulrich, and thanks to the participant who asked that question. And that is very much in line with the second cause of school violence, which is the intrinsic factors of students and staff, like the person's age, sex, temperament, state of mental and physical health, and the personality, which all interact to determine their behavior. So actually, someone can feel that he's older than another person, and for that reason, is able to carry out violence. It's not the right way. And let's not forget that the school as a community equally has various um, episodes of frustrations, both on the side of teachers and administrative staff, and also on the side of students. Uh, each of these stakeholders have got to sit in one room for them to understand, temperaments, to build a convivial atmosphere. It's not something to be done in silos. It's supposed to involve students and staff, understanding adolescent well-being, understanding those triggers of violence, because I tell you what, no one is immune to violent episodes. It's we just have to control, and if we understand each other and create that enabling environment, I think this can be curbed. So in a school system, I don't think necessarily teachers have to beat students to study. Educational psychology is a good cause that helps teachers to understand that the students, when they are able to learn and when they are not, and some of the techniques that they can use to curb their frustrations and avoid violence. Thank you.
Okay. The next question that is still in line with you, Desmond, is also explain more on holistic implementation of health and well-being curricula.
Well, thanks, Ulrich, and thanks to the person who asked the question. The health and well-being curricula is supposed to be holistic. I take an example of comprehensive sexuality education, which Daniel has talked about, and Jasmine as well. That curriculum is age appropriate and culturally relevant, which means it's not only targeting the sexual and reproductive health and well-being of the adolescent, but equally nurturing them about gender equality, equity, human rights, and how boys are called upon to be respectful to girls and vice versa. It's a holistic curriculum, and I think comprehensive sexuality education offers that holistic nature, which when taught can touch on many aspects of the adolescent. Um, that is an example, and other content like physical education, nutrition courses, or equally act, together to provide a wholesome learning and to nurture the adolescent in a wholesome way. So that's just an example, and this can be specified in the school curriculum. And let's not forget, it's supposed to be multi-sectoral and have multi-stakeholders on board.
Okay. Okay, thank you so much, Desmond, for that amazing answer. So we have a series of questions that goes to Jasmine about cyberbullying. How could we implement technological devices in schools while protecting students from it? And equally, the next question from one of the followers to Jasmine is anyways, just go ahead and answer the first question, Jasmine. How could we implement technological devices in schools while protecting students from it?
Okay, sorry about that. Yes, now you can hear me. Okay, if I understand correctly, you're asking how we can have them include devices inside the schools and at the same time protect them. I think this comes from awareness in the home, awareness in the school. What is cyberbullying? What are the applications that they are downloading to make sure that there is a talk, there's communication. Please, parents, guardians, teachers, let the youth and children come to you and be able to feel safe when they're talking to you if something happens. So it's all about awareness and feeling the safety and feeling comfortable as a child or as youth to come and talk if something happens. And of course, that there must be very strong discussions with all of the families, with all of the guardians within the schools about how to use appropriately how to use these devices.
Okay. Unfortunately, due to time constraints, we couldn't be able to answer the questions. And but the chat is still open for you to place your questions or for to be answered in further sessions, or you can meet one of the speakers personally, and he's going to answer your questions. So thank you all for joining us today for this important and timely discussion on violence. We have heard from some of the leading experts and practitioners in the field. And we have heard their insights, experiences, and recommendations to prevent, address, and respond to violence. Finally, I would like to acknowledge the organizers, sponsors, and partners who have made this event possible and who have committed to advancing the cause of peace and justice. I hope you all found this session informative, inspiring, and useful to your work. And please stay tuned for more events and opportunities. Stay safe out there.
Well, it's been quite a day. We've covered some challenging issues like violence, like adolescent sexual and reproductive health and rights. Now, these things are so important, but not always easy to talk about. And I think for me personally, what I found quite remarkable actually is hearing the different adolescents from all around the world talking about issues that are so close to their hearts, and it's been incredible to watch.
No, definitely. And I think it was such a great space to hear from young people, and not only hear from them, but also to see them directly engage with leaders from across the world. And for me, what really stood out was a session on mental health. We also had a session on NCDs, which is very important to me coming from the Caribbean. That's a huge cause of death going forward. I really think that this has been a great space for us to hear and amplify that youth voice.
Completely agree with you both. And as day one comes to an end, many of you are probably wondering what's next for the 1.8 billion campaign. What happens after this global forum? We'll be definitely talking about this in more detail as we delve into the multiple and exciting commitments and accountability tools tomorrow. But meanwhile, if you're an organization passionate about adolescent well-being, I'd encourage you to join PMNCH. My organization, the SRHR Africa Trust in South Africa, is a member, one of 1,400 members. This is the largest partnership of its kind anywhere in the world. And as you've heard throughout the day, we can do more when we all work together. This is also how we can continue to unite, to rise and lead. It's important to remember that beyond this moment, we are growing a movement for positive adolescent health, well-being, and development.
Well said, Levi. Well, we'll say goodbye for now, but we look forward to seeing you again in the morning, and it's going to be super exciting.
Yeah, all right.
Bright and early.
See you later, everyone. Bye.
This is our time. We are 1.8 billion young people in the world today, standing as one to reach equality. In the world today, where dreams ignite, we stand as one, younger shining bright, united in spirit, we make a change. For 1.8 billion strong, our voices be arranged. With hope in our eyes, we'll break these walls together. We'll rise, we'll answer the call. Bound by our purpose, a love we have compared. Justice, our right, to surely get there. We are 1.8 billion young people strong. Symphonies of voices singing in the song. Let's rise above, let's compassion. champion justice, better days and nights. Ours is the power as we claim our rights. We are 1.8 billion young people strong. Symphonies of voices singing in the song. Let's rise up, let's compassionate brighter future we will seize the day. We are uniting, we are rising, we are leading. For better feel alive, for better kind of one. It's time to listen, it's time for action. As we come together hand in hand, the world will witness the change we have planned. With unity and love, we will overcome. For 1.8 billion young hearts, we are one.